All right, moving ahead, we are going to we were talking about the nutrient cycling. I told you that all the organisms are made of the nutrients, and these nutrients basically, whenever the environment gives us nutrients, whenever the environment gives us nutrients, these nutrients, when they enter into the living objects, they are locked. Why am I saying they are locked? Suppose C6H12O6. These are three, these are names or symbols of three elements, three nutrients. But in fact, if you see them separately, basically you have captured 24 of these elements. 6 carbon, 6 oxygen, 12 hydrogens. So now they are in the molecular form. Once these particular elements enter into or are converted into the molecular forms, it is very obvious that these elements are locked. These elements are locked. And if you do not mineralize them, the next step after death, what you need to do, you need to mineralize them. If you don't mineralize them means that you separate them and you return them to environment. So if you don't do it, these elements would keep locked inside they would be locked inside these particular kind of um, molecules, and slowly and gradually the environment would start losing its nutrients, because remember always that there are no new nutrients are under formation, no new nutrients, except for the, let's say, except for the carbon and hydrogen, sorry, except for the carbon and oxygen. New The formation of new elements is not being done. And even I am convinced that carbon is not newly is not made like in the new form. No, we are not making the new carbon. What we are doing, we are just taking the carbon from the air and integrating the carbon into the organic molecules, right? So basically we are not making any new carbon. Even we are not making any new oxygen. No, what we are doing, we are just converting the we are just converting the already present nutrients into the molecules. So we must be returning them. That is why the cycles are necessary. And one of the benefit of microorganisms to the nature, that they not only decompose, they do decomposition, they perform decomposition, but while decomposing, they are mineralizing the essential nutrients, and they are returning them back to the environment. Another very important point that I just got in my mind, and these this particular topic demands that I clear that concept. Why do why do organisms perform decomposition? Always remember that the organisms that do decompositions, basically they are using they are using the molecules for respiration. Let's say let's say uh, a fungus decomposes your a plant dead body. Why is it decomposing it? Remember, it is decomposing it because the fungus doesn't know that what good it is doing to the environment. It is very important to mention here. Fungus doesn't know that what is it doing to the environment, what good it is doing. Fungus only knows that I need the molecules for respiration or protein formation. So in reality, decomposition is just a word that we provided this procedure because it is actually benefiting us. It is like it is basically bringing a benefit for the human body because the fungi and bacteria are cleaning the earth. So we say that they decompose the molecules. Mineralization would also mean decomposing. So they decompose the molecules. So actually, the decomposition is the word that we gave to this procedure. Actual phenomena is they, I mean, fungi and bacteria only need it because of the because they want to take their food, they want to perform the respiration. Okay, so now, all right. If when we talk about nutrient cycle, always remember that in a nutrient cycle, a nutrient is in three, it goes through three major, it goes through three major steps. Number one, number one, it is it is present in nature in elemental form. Like it is present in nature. Number two, it is present in nature maybe in elemental form, maybe in elemental form or molecular form. Why did I write maybe in elemental form or molecular form? Because many of the nutrients are in elemental form. Let's say the phosphorus or sulfur sometimes they are in elemental form. But the hydrogen and oxygen are in the form of water. The carbon is in the form of carbon dioxide. So, first of all, they are present in nature. Number two, they are integrated into living objects. Integrated into living objects. Or basically, we make them usable. We make them usable. Meaning, actually, in nature, the elements are not always in the usable forms. The elements are not always in the usable form in nature. So, what do? We just integrate the elements into living objects so we can use them. So, and the third is we return them. We return them into elemental form, elemental or simpler form. So let's begin. First of all, I will start the nitrogen cycle. Since the carbon cycle is very simple, so we'll go through the nitrogen cycle first. I have a recorded video on YouTube related to this also present. Um, in the nitrogen cycle, first of all, remember that why the nitrogen is necessary. The nitrogen is necessary because the nitrogen is used in the amino acids and DNA. And these are two of the most vital molecules of two of the most vital molecules of nature. Like, you cannot even assume that any of the organism could be devoid of these two molecules, even the viruses. Can you imagine their importance? That viruses don't have any carbohydrate or they don't have any fats, but they do need the protein and nucleic acid, meaning DNA or RNA. So this much important the nitrogen is. So obviously, in the end, the amino acids would be converting into proteins. So at every single stage of life, we are going to need these two molecules. Okay, so remember that when we talk about the nitrogen, in the nature, the nitrogen is present in N2 or N triple bond N form, and it is non-usable. This form is non-usable, like you cannot use them. So what do you need to do? You first need to make it usable, or we also say that you need to fix the nitrogen. You need to fix the nitrogen. Now, how do we do that? Now, I'm about to write a very interesting statement that basically is not present or demanded by your syllabus, but it is very interesting and it would make you aware that why many things are important in nature. The enzyme required for the enzyme required for the fixing of nitrogen into usable form only is present in bacteria and only work in anaerobic conditions. Only work in anaerobic conditions. Now, this is something you can understand that the life cannot exist without the anaerobic conditions. One of the most vital information that we should have, that obviously we say that the oxygen is necessary for life, no doubt. But given the fact that we must aware that nitrogen is one of the most vital form and you cannot convert it, you cannot fix it, you cannot make it usable without the anaerobic condition, without the anaerobic conditions. Okay, next. Now, how do we do that? Now, I'll be opening the next page, N2. N2 should be fixed in one of the two ways. It can be fixed by free living bacteria. Free living bacteria. What do these bacteria do? These bacteria convert the nitrogen, they combine the nitrogen and hydrogen into ammonia. And then this process is called as nitrogen fixation. Remember, this particular procedure is nitrogen fixation. After this, we are going to process it, but now it is usable. It is usable. Now, this ammonia needs to be converted into another less toxic and less toxic and usable. Like obviously, we know that along with usable, the form should be soluble. Why do we need it to be soluble? I'll tell you that. Obviously, you already know about it. Okay. Ammonia is converted by a process called as nitrification. Nitrification, or yes, and this process is done by nitrifying bacteria. nitrifying bacteria, what happens that ammonia is converted into NO2 negative and NO3 negative. If you want to know their names, the NO2 negative is nitrite and NO3 negative is nitrate. Now remember that, and these both are soluble forms. These both are soluble forms, and you must know that now with the help of water they would enter into plants. It means that at this step you have the nitrate integrated the nitrate into food chain, into food chain integrated the nitrate into food chain over here. Now from the plants, okay, one more thing, one more way is uh, of fixing the nitrogen is by bacteria symbiotically living in plant roots. You know what is the meaning of living symbiotically?
No.
Symbiotically living means that two different organisms which might be enemies of each other, they compromise on one of their needs. So bacteria compromise because they require the glucose and other shelter, and the plants compromise because they require the nitrogen. So basically, legume is the name of that family. Let me rewrite this word. Legume plants. Legume. These bacteria symbiotically living in legume roots, and they give them fixed nitrogen. Now, obviously, obviously, when the plants, now I'm not moving the cycle from here right now. From the plants, the food would move to the animals, obviously it would move to the animals, and now most important part is coming. When plants animals or uh, sorry, when the plants or animals die, when the plants or animals die, there are two ways. Number one, first of all, they are, when they die, their proteins are their proteins are decomposed, and obviously who performs the decomposition? Fungi and bacteria. What kind of step they perform in decomposition? This step is called as ammonification. Let me write the definition of ammonification for you. Ammonification is the word which refers to the uh, process of removing the amine group from amino acids, from amino acid. So the ammonification is done, and yes, ammonification is done. So it means that we are going to get to this particular procedure again. Ammonification is done by fungi and bacteria, and now in this procedure, the proteins are being, amino acids are being converted to ammonium ion NH4 positive, which would be converted into NH3. Now we are going back to this stage. we are going back to this stage where the nitrifying bacteria can convert the ammonia. They can convert the ammonia back to the nitrates. Okay, it means it didn't go to the nature. Did you understand this step?
Yes.
Now, it didn't go to the nature basically. We did not want it to stay and move between the organisms. It should go back to the nature. Now, how would it go? Remember, when the nitrifying bacteria convert the ammonia into nitrate, there are some bacteria that perform denitrification. And these bacteria are actually called as denitrifying bacteria. What do they do? They perform two things. They would separate the oxygen from nitrate and nitrogen from it, r- removing them in back into the nature. So remember that the process of moving the nitrogen back to the environment does not depend on the death of the organisms. This is very technical point. Basically, it is totally different from the carbon cycle. In the carbon cycle, the returning of the carbon back to nature majorly depends upon the death of the organism. But in nitrogen cycle, it does not chiefly dependent upon the death. It basically depends upon the presence of bacteria that which can convert them back to nitrogen right after getting fixed. Right after getting fixed, they can convert them into the denitrifying bacteria can remove the nitrogen and oxygen from the nitrate, returning the nitrogen back to the environment. So this is one of the technical points. Now, this is how the nitrogen cycle works. Remember, two to three things in this particular cycle is important. The steps performed by bacteria. If you notice how many steps are being performed by bacteria, number one is nitrogen fixation. This, sorry, this is not number one. Number one is fixation. So this is number one, nitrogen fixation. Number two, converting the ammonia into the nitrate, which is nitrification. And then you can also say this step is also done by bacteria, but the fungi is along with it, ammonification. And the fourth step in which the bacteria are involved is denitrification, in which the nitrates are denitrified back to the environment. Okay, so is it understood?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the nitrogen cycle, movement of nitrogen into the nature. All right, so let's open the new Jamboard. This might be the last Jamboard we are opening. Have you downloaded them all?
Yeah. I have all of them saved.
But you have links.
Yeah.
You have links. Basically, what's going to happen that from the start of the October, from the 1st October, they are going to eliminate the Jamboard or basically detach it. If they completely destroy the application, it would be very wrong because I also have many notes present on the Jamboard. So if you can do it one by one, you may download them. You have the option to download them so before October, if you are going to need these, and I guess you are going to need these in October.
Yeah.
If I write your name over here, so we have almost 21 boards in which one is newly made. But if I'm not wrong, I also had a student named Hassan before you from the previous session. Um, yes, this is his name. He was from Kuwait. So yours is starting from here, 23rd of April. So mm, 6th April is the his last, and this is the 23rd April. So yours is starting from here. So almost from here, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There is ninth that is just made. Nine, uh, each containing 20 sheets. So 180 sheets almost if we complete this one. Okay, anyways, 180 sheets can be converted into a whole book, by the way. Okay, moving on to the carbon cycle. Now, see, the carbon cycle is rather very simple, and even you can easily make it. Why? Because when we talk about the carbon cycle obviously starts from carbon dioxide, and the only way to fix the carbon dioxide is through the plants performing the photosynthesis. Obviously, there is no other way that you do it. Okay, yes, you can do this with the help of the phytoplanktons, which are algae, and they can convert the carbon dioxide into the carbohydrates for the especially for the food chains of present in the water bodies and oceans. So yes, the carbon dioxide can be fixed by the phytoplanktons, but yes, uh, from the producers. So the carbon dioxide gets into them, then it goes to the animals, and when the animals die and the plants die, they are decomposed, and when they decompose, the carbon dioxide would be returning to it would be returning back to the nature. But remember that there is another possibility, and that is the ancient plants are buried and fossilized. They are buried and fossilized, and once they are fossilized, they are burned into the fossil fuels, burn in the fossil fuels in the industry, and then the carbon dioxide also returns through this. Now you can use them in the industry, in any industry, like automobile or any other industry, but yes, it does happen. So it's that simple. The carbon cycle is that simple. It begins and it finishes. The important part here that sometime the questions, it is asked in the questions that what are the sources of carbon returning back to the environment. Yes, one more thing, sorry, it is like very wrong that I forget it. uh, One way of returning the carbon back to the environment is the decomposition. Second way is burning the fossil fuels. Third way, animals and plants both perform the respiration. And we know very well that in respiration, the carbon dioxide is returned to the nature. So there are three ways. There are three ways in which the carbon dioxide is returned to the nature. And this is important to know because it is sometimes asked in a 2 or 3 marker question. So that is basically the way of returning the nutrients back to the environment, the nitrogen and carbon cycle. Any problem here?
No. Yeah.
Combustion, fossil fuels, nitrification, nitrogen fixation by lightning. Yes, this is another point of view that nitrogen fixation is not only done by the bacteria, it is also done by the through the lightning. But if we try to understand, in the food chain, the lightning doesn't contribute that much. No doubt, the nitrogen fixation is happening through the lightning, but in food chain it doesn't contribute there. Absorption of nitrate by plants, production of amino acid and proteins, feeding and digestion of proteins, deamination, and denitrification. Now, this ammonification, you can also refer it to deamination. Ammonification also is called as deamination. Like you can convert it to the ammonia. Hold on a second. Okay, so now that we are done with the role of microorganisms in these procedures, name of the bacteria are not required. We have said that where they are involved. Everything clear. Okay. Now, moving on, everything is covered here. Transfer of energy, energy loss, why energy is more efficient for human to eat crop plants. I told you that why the short food chains are good for humans. I have already told you. Interpret pyramids, discuss the advantage of using pyramid of energy. I have told you that it involves all the other pyramids. Consumers may be classed as primary, secondary, tertiary, everything clear. All right, so we can move on to the populations. Okay, what is a population? Let's have a very quick overview about the population. See, a population is you can say it's one of the highest degree of biological organization. One of the highest degree. If you remember from the initial chapters, we said that uh, the organisms are made of cells. Then we said the cells combine into tissue. The cells combine into tissues. The tissues combine into organs. Organs combine into organ systems, and then organ systems combine into individuals. Now, where does it? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, where does it go after that? This is a question. Like, obviously, we know that everything is in organization, everything is going through a particular pattern, but after that, where does it go? Where does this does it have a higher level? Yes. Now, since we have said that the organ systems are making the organ systems are making the individual, now the what would happen when the individuals would combine? What would happen when the individuals combine? Remember that when the individuals combine, we get two groups. If the individuals in a group are those which are belonging to same species, it means it would be a population. But as I have already told you in the previous lessons, that when the individuals combine belonging to different species, it would be a community. Now, see, when we try understanding about organization levels, you know that we try to understand about the cells separately. Then we try to understand about the tissues separately, then the organs, then the organ systems, then the individual. We have tried We have tried understanding all of them. Now, the question is, does a population have does a population contain such characters that need to be discussed? Yes. There is a whole study, there is a very big branch of ecology that is called as population ecology. Population ecology basically refers to the dynamics of population, different angles of a population. Like, what do we need to discuss in a population? How a population would increase, how a population would decrease, how a population is going to be damaged, what factors can increase or decrease the individuals in a population, what would be a growing population, what would be a declining population. These are, and then, is there a pattern of population growth? A pattern. So all these are answered in the population ecology. Remember that this, we are not going to get to the very much detail of everything, but we'll touch almost everything here. Going to the book, we are about to see, hold on, populations. Okay, we are about to see that I have already told you that ecosystem is because of the community. Community means you have different types of organisms. So ecosystem is because of community. Ecosystem is not because only because of the population. It is because of a community. So moving on, we have different factors that can increase or decrease a population. Over here in this topic, if we touch it, they are actually describing different ecosystems. Woodland is separate ecosystem since it has its own community. Remember, community always have their specific organisms. Community has its specific organisms, and we know very well that this specificity depends much upon abiotic factors. What are those abiotic factors at which the biodiversity. Community can also be referred to biodiversity. Like the number of species in a particular area is biodiversity. So the community has its own specific organisms depending upon the abiotic factors. What are those abiotic factors? Like altitude, latitude, longitude, the climate, the weather, temperature, soil pH, soil texture, um, the rainfall, the annual temperature, all these things are abiotic factors. So every community has its set of biodiversity or microorganisms depending upon those factors, and that would be defining the ecosystem. Remember, community defines the ecosystem, meaning that the ecosystem basically depends upon the presence of biotic factors that depend on abiotic factors. Simply putting it, if I am living in an area, I am depending upon the abiotic factors in that area. Suppose supply of food, suppose my quality of life, that is also abiotic factor. So everything, if an organism is living somewhere and that group is making up a community, like if you are sitting in a room, there may be ants, there may be behind a table, there may be a lizard, there may be small mosquitoes, there may be flies. All of them are a community. So, but remember that all of us are basically depending upon the abiotic factor of an ecosystem. So the abiotic factor, the abiotic plus biotic would make an ecosystem. And Every ecosystem has its own biotic and abiotic factors. I guess you have understood it now.
Yeah.
Is it understood? Okay, then
Yeah.
next is lakes and ponds. They are separate ecosystems. So you can see the formula that I have been telling you. Individuals of the same species are population. Population plus other population is community. Community plus non-living part equals to ecosystem. This has been explained already above here. Okay, catfish is a secondary consumer. These things are secondary. No new material. Yes, no new material enters the Earth ecosystem from space, and there is no significant loss of material. Earth is a closed ecosystem. The things are cyclic. Then comes, hold on, containing the community, identify and state the factors affecting population. Graphs lead to each phase of sigmoid curve. Okay, so this topic is particularly not required. This is recorded, and if you want to cross it, because I have sent you the book as well, you can go to the 696 page and cross it, because distribution and ecosystem is not the topic. Okay, factors affecting population growth. Now these different factors are like, if you refer here, these are limited food supply, competition, predation, and disease. See, when we discuss these factors, basically you can say that these factors define the diversity, the diversity, health, and survival, and survival. These factors define the diversity, health, and survival factors of a population. Like, based on these factors, you can determine that a population is good or bad. It's going to progress, or it's going to, or maybe it's going to decline. So, food supply. What is the food supply? Like, do we have a lot of competition? Remember, we are talking about population. Population means right now we have same types of organisms. We are not discussing any relation between different types of organisms. So food supply makes the organism do competition. They compete a lot. They have also mentioned competition separately over here, but it is a reality. It is a reality that the food supply and competition are two things going in parallel. Organisms to If the food supply is good, they can breed more successfully. If the food supply is not good, then there would be a forced emigration, or the death would be there, starvation would be there. See, the points that I'm highlighting may be the marking scheme words. So that is what I was telling you in the beginning, that you should be following this practice. Competition, obviously, they would compete for females, they would compete for food, they would compete for shelter. These are different kinds of competitions. These are different kinds of competitions. Okay. Next is predator prey relationship. Although this has to be noted here that predator prey relationship is something related to a community, but it also uh, it uh, it also is a driving factor, a driving factor for population, a driving factor for population, meaning that the population can increase or decrease based upon the presence of the predators. Telling you about this, let's see. There is an example of the um, lynx and snowshoe hare. Lynx and snowshoe hare. Now, okay, let me tell you. Suppose you have a community. This is a community in which you have a population of hare and you have a population of lynx. This is obvious that the populations mix up to make a community. This is something very obvious. They mix up to make a community. Now, when we say that the populations mix up to make a community, it means it in every community the populations are existing. Just like I said, we are sitting in a room. Let's say we are three humans in a room, maybe 100 ants, two lizards, 50 flies. This is the existence of a community. But the thing is, the lizards, flies, ants, humans, they are the populations in themselves. Why? Because they are belonging to the same species, they are individuals of the same species, so they are populations in themselves. Okay, moving on to next. Obviously, every population needs the food. Even if you are sitting, even if you are talking about the lynx. Lynx is a very great predator of a hare. So even if you are talking about the lynx, still you should know that the lynx needs its food supply to survive, because the health of the food sorry the health of the lynx population would depend upon the food supply, and its food supply is rabbit. So let's study the rabbit and lynx as separate populations, not as existing in a community. We are right now talking about the population, both populations separately. See, in a predator-prey relationship, when the blue one is referring to snowshoe hare and lynx is represented by red one, you can see that there is quite a similar pattern in the existence of lynx as well as snowshoe hare. When the population of snowshoe hare rises, the like in this particular region, the lynx were present before before the hare. It is very much evident that lynx were present before the hare. Then they started declining. You know why? Why they started decline? Because there was no food for them, so they declined. When they were declining, the snowshoe hare was introduced by the humans, so they started proliferating. Now, can you justify this proliferation? Yes, we can justify. This proliferation is because the hares have no predators right now. Got no predators. So then they got decreased due to some reason, but not decreased significantly. And then they increased again. Now the lynx population also increased here. But this much increase in the lynx population caused a decline in the population of the rabbit. This they tried to increase again, but then they decreased. With parallel to the snowshoe hare, you can see that the lynx are also declining. Why? Because the is scarce and food is scarce, and the lynx are migrating from there to search for food. Got it? Get it?
Yes.
Okay, now you can easily study the rest of the pattern on your according to you. You can see it's almost a similar pattern. Now, the disease is one of the biggest factors that can increase or decrease a population. If the disease is there, it can decrease the population. Epidemics can reduce population sizes very rapidly. Olive trees are being killed by bacterial pathogens Xylella fastidiosa. Then Banana growers have been affected by similar problem. Fungal diseases are there. Uh, the most popular variety of banana, the Cavendish, is under threat of because of an infection. Then the humans are there. COVID-19 happened. Then the HIV continues to be a huge problem. 37.9 million people affected. Estimated 770,000 deaths in 2018. The WHO estimate that there were 4 or 5 thousand malarial deaths in 2018. That were there were about 22, 28 million cases of the disease. So you can say that the disease is not always a bad thing. It is basically a blessing to control the sizes of different population. Like I am right now talking with from the side of the nature. In nature, it is a blessing that the diseases can destroy population so that the earth remains sustainable. Got it?
Yes.
Okay, so human population is just going further topic. I told you that you should not be worrying about it. It's just a random thing. So moving on, we can just identify from the size of the texts that what we should be studying. So we are moving to sigmoid population curve, population growth. Now, what is this curve? Basically, it's a curve that is made for a population, living with limited facilities, limited you can say supplies in a closed system, like nothing is moving out or nothing is entering inside this population. So what happens that initially this basically is a sigmoid curve. Mostly we make this type of curve for bacteria. uh, Paramecium, this is paramecium, not bacteria, this is paramecium, but it is very similar curve that we make for bacteria. Initially, the the first phase is mostly called as lag phase. A lag phase means that there is no growth in population size, no growth in population size, just preparing to grow. They are just preparing to grow, just like a cell performs before mitosis. They are just preparing to grow. Then B is called as the log phase. In other words, it is also called as exponential phase. Exponential phase means that utilizing all the resources that are available in the closed system, they are now growing exponentially. The growth of population size exponentially, exponentially. This is called as log phase. Then comes another phase called as stationary phase. In the stationary phase, now this supplies, you can say, okay, now uh, in the B phase, you can just uh, understand a B phase where the birth of the individuals is quite larger than the death of the individuals. But in the stationary phase, you can say the birth rate is equal to the death rate, meaning no growth, no death, equal. Stationary phase is a phase stationary phase is a phase in which due to limited supplies, due to limited supplies, wastes and competition and fights, even fights lead to lead to C, meaning stationary phase. The D is going to be called as the decline phase, where now the death rate is quite higher than the birth rate. Why? Because now, due to closed system, there are no further supplies, and the organisms are just in a competition, ending up all getting finished. So this is the explanation. It's not likely to strain resources of the habitat, but when a population of one or two four doubles, there is likely to be far more competition for food. Stationary is at this stage, limiting factors come into play. Limiting factors. What is a limiting factor? From the photosynthesis chapter, you remember that a limiting factor is going to affect the rate of something. So over here, limiting factor is a food supply or disease or infection or fights, overcrowding, and then diseases are here. Then the death phase, I have already told you. Limits to population growth, they are same. Abiotic and biotic limiting factors are here. Mm, yes, these are the limiting factors. First is competition, as I have already told you. Then abiotic and biotic limiting factors. See, in abiotic limiting factors, we say that rainfall, temperature, light intensity, these can affect the population size. But in the biological factors that are affecting a population, you know why we are again looking at the factors? Because these factors are specific to the sigmoid curve. Those were just a general discussion. Remember, these factors are related to the sigmoid curve, so you must remember this. Affecting plants, including their leaves being eaten by grazing animals or by caterpillars and other insects, and the spread of fungal diseases. So, these are basically some biotic limiting factors that are causing the organisms to get limited. Like this is a graph in which the the Penicillium aurelia and the Penicillium caudatum eat the same food, but P. aurelia can capture and ingest faster. So its population is rising, but caudatum is falling because it doesn't have the uh, eating efficiency. Doesn't have the eating efficiency. So these are the factors. Then animal population can be affected by seasonal changes. You can just simply see. Uh, Cold winter can severely reduce. Animal population are also greatly affected by biotic factors like availability of food, competition for nesting site, very important. Nesting site would also define the hiding places. These would also define the hiding places. So if there are not sufficient hiding places, they are not going to survive. Predation is there, parasitism and diseases is also there. Okay, these are very simple things, so you can just simply remember the name, because the other things you can remember by yourself. Clear?
Yeah.
Okay, in the next class we'll directly jump to conservation. I hope in the meantime you can cover up this particular chapter so we can easily complete this one.
Okay.
Any problem?